So I went to go see The Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death. It's directed by Tom Harper. Probably don't know who he is. He's done some episodes of TV, a film called War Book, and some minorly notable shorts. I think one was nominated for a BAFTA. And it stars Phoebe Fox. And I gotta say, for a film subtitled Angel of Death, not that high of a body count. I think more people died in the first one than in this one. It's kind of weird when you think about it. So the first film was a relatively well-executed, if fairly traditional ghost story, right? You know, it got the pacing down, it had the setting focused on creepy, eerie, some jump scares. A good time was had by most folks who saw it, right? This one, it's like someone understood that people liked ghost stories, but they don't know how to tell a ghost story. All they know how to do is tell a modern style slasher monster horror film. And so they tried their best to make the modern horror film into a ghost story, but just didn't understand how they should do it, so they just tried to mime things that were popular in the first film, but still have them in place of, like, the jump scares and settings in a modern horror film. Basically what I'm saying is it doesn't work. Alright, so let me explain. It's like the filmmakers knew what was scary, but they didn't know what made that scary thing actually scary and actually work, right? So when they put it in the film, it ends up not working. Alright? So, for example, there was a lot of visuals used from the first film, but not really used as effectively because, you know, the lighting was off, or just the music, the tone of the film didn't set up that scary thing effectively in this one as it did in the previous one, right? Like a chair rocking, given the right situation in the previous film, was a little bit creepy, a little bit off-putting. In this one, it ends up being a little bit comic. There's a heavier reliance on audio cues as lead-ins to jump scares and screamers and things like that. And so when you actually hit that jump scare or that screamer, it's not as effective. You're not, you know, scared and jump. You're startled by loud noise and jump, right? And also the whole film is very brightly, very well lit, very clean, and very sort of it's a look that would work well in like a historical, you know, some sort of biopic or something like that. But it's not the right sort of setting. It's not the right visual cues for a horror film. Something that's trying to creep you and unsettle you and disturb you. And they really rehash a lot of things from the previous film, except just not as well. Like, you learn the whole backstory about the ghost in this one again, except instead of letting it unfold over the course of the film and getting sort of increasingly disturbed by it, it's just like an audio recording that's just wrote like, ooh, hey, this happened, and it just doesn't come across as unsettling as it did in the first one. It's like, as I said, they knew what was scary, but they didn't know why, and they used it anyway. It's a little unfortunate, but so yeah, not really scary. A lot of jump scares, audio cue jump scares, and jump scares and jump scares, and yeah. Additionally, there are things that are ostensibly important to the plot that aren't supported by the story. Right? So, for example, the main character has a strong emotional connection to one of the children, without ever really showing you any real strong emotional connection to the child. She's just suddenly, oh hey, I care about this person, but you don't really see it. She comes across like a teacher, not like someone who genuinely, honestly, deeply cares about the child. But her actions are of someone who honestly, deeply cares about the child, and the resolution supports that, but it just doesn't show you any of that for some reason. There's other bits where, they have important sort of backstory bits, but they just sort of are there and they tell it to you, you don't really feel any strong emotion from it because the acting is adequate but not good, and so you don't really feel the emotion of the character. So it's like someone reading a script. So it doesn't really work, and then it doesn't really inform their character all that much for the rest of the film. It's just there because they needed it for that one particular scene, and it doesn't really have much of a ramification on the rest of their character, the rest of the story arc, with, you know, an exception or two here or there, but for the most part it just doesn't really fit together the way that a good film should. Ooh, so I forgot a couple things. So there's the little kid who's creepily silent and has a mysterious connection with a ghost for no established or used reason in the film. And there's the whole thing with the bullies who are just really excessively nasty for no reason whatsoever, except for to get you to be happy when they die by the monster, the ghost. I've never understood that whole thing, to be perfectly honest, but they use it here because, hey, you know, it's what you do, so we're gonna do it. Not as well as other films do. Yay! Basically what I'm saying, if it hasn't been excessively obvious thus far, is that this is not a good movie. Don't go see it. It's not a good horror movie, not a good movie, period. Just, it's not the worst by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not worth seeing. There's no core to it. It's like it was just following like a paint-by-numbers list of things you need to do in a horror movie, and then another paint-by-numbers list of things that showed up in the first movie that people liked, so let's use them in this one, right? It has the cardinal sin in my eyes of a horror movie sequel, or a sequel in general, is that it doesn't expand upon the universe established in the first one. It doesn't give you more depth or insight into the ghost. It doesn't do anything interesting. Nothing. It's just not worth your time or your money or your thoughts really beyond this review. So until next time, folks, enjoy film.